My name is Simon. I'm going to be talking about IaC and the people in between, not just the end user. So let's get it going. If I can get the slide going. All right, so firstly, just a bit about me. Who am I? As I said, I'm a lead engineer at Enabler. I've been using Terraform for now close to 5 years. I started around 0.6, so makes me a bit old, but that's cool. What do we do at Enabler? We're a consulting company, mainly focusing on AWS, GCP, Kubernetes, providing platforms and help people, better their experience. So, sorry, my keyboard seems to be a bit slow. So what I'm going to be talking about today is pretty much infrastructure as code and the people involved in that process. And we'll have a look at some characteristics of what good looks like in terms of self-service, and essentially trying to satisfy each and every one of those people within IaC process and keep them happy. So, who are the people involved in the process? So this is, I suppose, my opinion on who's involved. And we have the end user, of course, or the customer, security and risk. Sometimes they can be separate, sometimes they can be together. Change management, Scrum Masters, project managers, managers in general, and also the team that's building the IaC. So what do these people want? So generally the end user, and that in this scenario is fellow developers, fellow engineers, is that they just want to be able to create infrastructure as code as quickly as possible and as easily as possible without any issues, without any problems. So the easier we make it for them, the better off they'll be. Next, security and risk. So generally in the IaC process, security and risk are heavily involved because it's always a key topic when it comes to infrastructure. And generally with security, you want to make sure that you don't create any breaches, you don't introduce any vulnerabilities. And then risk generally wants you to make sure that you're not going to cause any crazy outages for them and cost them millions of dollars. Next, we look at change management. Generally, change management, some places have them, some places don't. If you're lucky that you don't have one, and you don't have to worry about change management, it's still good to think about change management anyway, because the processes within change management are very valuable. But what does a change management person want? He wants or she wants to make sure that you don't introduce any bugs, cause any outages, reduce performance, stuff like that. The other thing is they want you to document what you've changed and make sure you keep a record of it. Next, we look at the management folk. Management generally wants you to deliver features fast and deliver value to the end user. So throughout this whole process is pretty much what we'll be looking at too. Engineers, well, me as an engineer, first thing I want to do is automate everything that I possibly can, reduce the amount of toil that I have to do, and worry about the fun stuff that I want to work on, not repetitive, boring, mundane stuff that can be automated away. And for anyone that out there that doesn't know what toil is just pretty much any manual repetitive task that you're going to have to perform every day. So let's have a quick look at what does good IaC self-service look like. Now, there's nothing really out of the blue here. To be honest, it's all about what I've learned during my career and about DevOps. So essentially, I'm just applying DevOps to IaC and following that kind of methodology to produce what is needed. So we'll go through the various things like user journey maps, modularization, testing and assurance, governance and security, CI/CD, documentation and automation. So let's go into a bit more detail into a few of those things now. All right, so let's start off with the end user. And to be honest, one of the key things I see when I'm working as a consultant within businesses is when you're creating self-service, and this is self-service for the end user within an internal business, for other IT workers or colleagues, peers, whatever you want to call them, we always forget about the end user. And we kind of think we know what they want, maybe because we're in the same field. I don't know, but really it is super important that you actually ask them what they want. And how can we do some of these things? Some of the tools that I've come across that are useful for me user journey maps, essentially pretty much putting yourself in the user's feet and going through the process that would take you through self-service, IaC, the whole CI/CD process, pretty much anything within the process. Try and put yourself in their shoes and work it out. The other thing that I've come across in the last couple of years is customer empathy sessions or user empathy sessions. It's essentially looking at going into a group with a bunch of end users, having a session with them, trying to go through pain points. For example, if you've got a pain point through CI/CD, sitting down with them and them taking you through the process or you going through the process, and then trying to work out how, as a group, how to fix some of these things. And finally, continuous feedback. A lot of the times I also see that when we look at creating self-service, we don't always get continuous feedback. We set it up and we just leave it, and then it can kind of go stale, or other things go, you need other, I suppose, features or something like that, and it kind of gets left to the side. So it's quite important. Next, we're going to talk about modularization, and this is pretty much key to self-service when it comes to Terraform and IaC. You need to make some awesome modules that people want to use. And I'm not talking about modules where you create resources, a couple of resources or something. I'm talking about a proper logical group of resources, like, an application, cluster, networking, whatever it may be, but groups of resources. We don't go out and just create a module one-to-one with a resource. So make sure you plan it out and have a think about it, and talk to, once again, the end user and see what they want. Next, opinionated modules is very important in my opinion. And we'll talk about it further in security, but opinionated modules can help with security, risk. They can make sure that the user doesn't do things that you don't want them to do. And also, it reduces choice for that user. So they're not going to make mistakes when they're creating a module. So that's quite important. Next, testing. Testing is always important. A lot of places don't test their modules. It can be hard testing modules because, you've got TerraTest, but that's a great tool, but it's not really the same as actually going and using a module. So at the moment, I've only really used TerraTest, and I'm still always thinking of better ways to test modules. So far, I haven't really come across it, but keep experimenting. We might get there one day. Next, auto documentation. I don't know if anyone's come across a tool called Terraform Docs. It's an awesome tool. It pretty much creates documentation for you for your modules. Go have a look because I know, like myself, I hate doing documentation just like everyone else does. This does it for you. So go have a look. It's really important. The end user needs to understand what that module is going to do and how you're going to use it and so on. So anything that does it for you is gold. Next, we want a module library, and you don't want a module library that's private, somewhere hidden in some private GitHub repo in your business. You want something that's publicly available for everyone to access, and even people be able to contribute to these module libraries too. There's no point hiding it away because then it just doesn't get used. Last thing I also wanted to talk about here was the auto dependency updating of modules when you're using them within your code. There's various tools out there that I've used, like Renovate or Dependabot, that can potentially update your versions for you when you do update modules. Because it's always kind of scary when you come into a business and you see someone using a Terraform module and it's 5 or 6 versions behind, and then you go and update it to the current version and you go, oh, what's going to happen? So it's important to keep them up to date. And on that note too, you always try and, I suppose in general, just in the IT world, anything like this, you don't want to introduce breaking changes in your modules. So if you can avoid it, always try and avoid breaking changes. Next, we're going to look at testing and assurance. So looking at testing and assurance, we've got linting. Now, thankfully, Terraform CLI has got some great tools in it, like Terraform Format. It can go and format everything for you. So I haven't really gone and used any third-party linting tools, but there are other ones out there, something like TF-Lint, if you really want to go and force people to do something that the Terraform format doesn't do for you. But essentially, you're just keeping your code in line with your best practices, and that's what you want. So if anyone does contribute to it, you'll know that straight away, this is what I've got to do, or this is the behavior that these fellows want me to follow. Next, validation. This is essentially just testing your syntax is correct, anything like that. And there's another tool, once again, that Terraform provides, which is Terraform Validate, that can do this for you. It is gold. I suggest if you don't use it, because it can pick up these silly little mistakes that you don't particularly notice straight away. Next, unit testing. Unit testing is, I suppose, difficult in the world of Terraform, but not impossible. The tool that I use is TerraTest, and it can provide you a good way of testing your code before you merge it into main, and making sure that your code is valid. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Finally, end-to-end testing. This for me is super important. And when I say end-to-end testing, this isn't just a simple plan. I want to run a plan. I want to make sure that the plan works. And then I want to deploy that actual plan live into an environment. So potentially you can have a feature environment if you're lucky enough that your business can afford it and allows you to spin up environments and trash them after each feature. Then apply it, run some testing after you've applied it, make sure that everything's right, and then destroy it. It can be a lifesaver, especially in the world of Terraform, because as everyone knows, a plan sometimes will plan fine, but not always apply correctly and give you errors. Next one, governance. I think this is fairly kind of new in my eyes when it comes to the world of IaC. I suppose with the creation of Sentinel or policy as code. We've gotten into the world of governance, and now we can potentially say, okay, what does my business want me to do? I can write any policy I want as code and then apply it via or test that policy against my code via Sentinel or Conf Test or numerous other tools too that can do the same thing. Stuff like I only want to use a particular region, or I don't want to let my end user create instances that are extra large and do crazy cost wasting things like that. Another one in the list of tools for governance is InfraCost. InfraCost is also a new tool that I've discovered. It's quite good because it gives you a cost at the end of your plan, and then it can give you even the diff of what currently was deployed to what is getting deployed. So you get a diff in cost. So you could see how much money you're potentially going to use by applying that code. And this is quite important because, as we know, cloud can really run away when it comes to cost. If you're not careful, you can spin up stuff and go, oh my God, at the end of the month, you've got, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially wasted. So, you don't want to overspend. So that's a good way of stopping that happening. Finally, change management. Like I said before, change management is important. And even if you don't have any sort of change management within your business, it's super important that you use some sort of change record or release record or change me file or something, whatever it may be. You need to record what you've changed from the previous release to the release. It's super important so that people can come in and have a look at what's changed. If potentially you've introduced any bugs, you can go back and say, okay, well, I need to look at these things and so on. It is quite important. So don't ever overlook that. Always make sure you do create some Docker around changes. Next, security. And I think this is one of the newest players in the IaC world. I've always struggled a lot with security when it came to IaC, especially in the first couple of years of using Terraform. There was no real security about it and best practices on how to secure IaC. And security are always concerned about it because, who can come in and use, create, destroy, alter your infrastructure and then take advantage of it. So firstly, user access. We all know who should be able to use your code or alter your code. So it's just quite important that you restrict it within GitHub, or if you use Terraform Cloud, you can do that within Terraform Cloud. But user access is quite important. Make sure you don't just allow everyone to go and make changes to whatever without any PRs or anything like that. You want to secure it through GitHub PRs, at least 2 reviewers, and then it can go through that. But yeah, and potentially if you want third-party people to use it, you can allow forked PRs within the repo. And the other thing is, make a user guide in your repo, just like you would, or contribution guide, I should say, just like you do within public repos where you want to contribute open source code. Do the same. Let them know what your conditions are and tell them what you need to do to get everything going. Next, Sentinel and Conf Test again. Policy as code can really help security. You can go and stop people doing stupid things like, okay, I'm going to open up port 80 to all people everywhere. That's pretty stupid to do, but it's been done and I've seen it happen by accident. But this policy as code can stop that. So tools like that are quite important. Next, static analysis tools. These potentially can scan your configuration There's tools like TFSec, Terraform Scan, CheckOV, Deep Source that can potentially scan your code and look for misconfigurations and potentially any other things like I just mentioned too before, potentially look at, port 80 open to everywhere. Finally, modules. Modules is an easy way you can really secure your modules and have that end user only use the modules. So when you create very opinionated modules, you only give them small amount of choice. You bake in, everything that security wants into that module. For example, you're not allowed to access, keep using it, but I'll keep using it. You're not allowed to access port 80 and all. So if you wanted some, security groups, let's create some network security groups, common ones that you can use, and then potentially block all that kind of stuff and say, hey, this is the module you can use, and away you go. And another tool within modules is variable validation. So variable validation also is new, but it can really provide some help here. You can give a choice to a user between a few things, or you can say, hey, I'm not going to allow you to do port 80 ever. You only got a choice between 443 and maybe 8443. Whatever it may be, you can do it within variable validation. Next, drift detection. This is fairly new to the table too. I've only ever seen it once done, and it wasn't really done with any tools. It was done manually. So first, let's just talk about why it's important. It's important because you want to ensure what you've deployed hasn't changed. And why do you get drift? Potentially, you can get drift because someone's manually gone in and changed something. You can get drift because something automatically has changed it, as in, some other process within your application has gone and changed something. Or potentially someone else has broken into your cloud desired, well, whatever cloud you choose to use, they've broken in and started changing stuff in the worst scenario, but hopefully that doesn't happen. So it's important to look at drift, and how can it be done? Well, what I've seen in the past is generally you automate a plan and you run it every hour or so. You check for any drift, and the plan does give you a bit of information about drift before the actual plan. So you can check it that way and then report to something like Slack or email or wherever it may be. But now we've got some fancy new tools, and one of them is drift detection by Terraform. So that's in beta at the moment. Other tools that potentially do the same thing is Drift CLI by SNCC and Bridge Crew by Prisma Cloud. And Bridge Crew, I believe, was or used to be the old Redlock. Finally, Drift detection by Terraform in beta coming out soon, I suppose. So that's probably some of the things you can use. I haven't actually used any of those tools myself, but it's something that I'm looking forward to using. All right, so now let's all bring it together. So we've gone through a bunch of stuff. How can we make sure that everyone's satisfied in this process? So looking at the pipeline, so what does continuous integration do for us? That makes us secure. It makes sure that you don't make any mistakes, or you try and reduce the amount of mistakes you've made. You try and test as much as you can. So you're looking at making sure that the testing team is happy and assurance is all good. You make sure that security is happy with your static analysis tool and your policy as code, same as governance. So it's kind of all there on the left in the integration, continuous integration. And also a bit more security when it comes to GitHub, and like I was saying, when it comes to all that user access and all that, and then continuous deployment is through there. So let's just go through this slide and have a look at it. And go through it. So this is my optimum pipeline. This is my best of breed pipeline, I would say. If I could, this is how I would do it. If I could do it. All right, so firstly, you have your Terraform module registry. So your user would go and grab a module, put it to their local development. You'd go to Git, then you'd create a branch, merge, then you trigger CI. CI would do your validation, your format, your linting, your testing, your security checks, everything that you can possibly think of. And then either it fails, notifies you via Slack, or you get to merge with at least 2 people reviewing your PR. Once it's merged and you know that all the checks are passed, it goes through the continuous deployment process. So it does your plan and apply to your desired cloud. I haven't really given a cloud there, but you can use any cloud you want with Terraform. And then another important task to do after you apply is some sort of smoke test. You want to make sure that what you've deployed hasn't destroyed or created any other issues within your environment. And you want to go through each and every one of your environments until you get into production. I won't go through environment progression because that's our next talk, and there'll be quite a bit of detail in that. So I'll kind of gloss over that. You go to the non-prod. The only other thing that I would do in a non-prod environment would be a load test to make sure that what you deployed is going to work in production. Finally, when you get to production, smoke test again. If you're lucky enough to have some sort of user testing, some sort of what do you call them? Lost the word, but you understand. I'll just keep going. But yeah, you want to test your environment, make sure you haven't, once again, made any mistakes and destroyed it. And after all that, you can either do the change record during the process. At the end of the process, depends on yourself, and depends on, I suppose, change management within your organization. Some places want you to open a change record at the start of the process and then close it at the end of the process, so you've got some sort of timing. Other places don't mind as long as there's some sort of change record somewhere with the information, and you can automatically create that. Finally, bolt-on drift detection, and you're always continually looking at your cloud environments and making sure that nothing's changed, and you're getting notified via Slack. And pretty much throughout the whole process, I would strongly recommend always getting notified to Slack or whatever your, I suppose, instant messaging is, if need be, email. But throughout the whole process, you need feedback. There's no point doing this without feedback. You want to know when something breaks so you can fix it. You want to know when something goes wrong with security or drift or whatever it may be. You want to know about it. So always make sure you're getting notified through Slack or something like that. All right. So after we've brought it all together, there was one more point that I missed on that slide. Sorry, it looks like I'm going to go over time, but I'll try and make it quick. One thing, and something that I haven't done, but I would love to do and try and work out, is template this up. Most deployment tools, CI tools, are all YAML-based or code-based, config as code. So template it up. It's going to be a repeatable process. So everyone that wants to use your pipeline can, and then you ensure that you get that same pattern across each and every team that wants to use your services. And by templating it up, you ensure that nothing really changes when it comes to security and user access and governance and so on. So templating this is the next step. Finally, once it's all brought together, how do we make those managers happy? We need to measure this stuff, and something that you can use is DORA. So what is DORA? DORA is a state of DevOps research program. It's been around for a long time. And essentially, it has some key goals. So one of the things that is characteristics of DORA is IaC, infrastructure as code, and it talks about it in detail. I'm not going to go too much detail into it, but go have a look at it, go have a read. And essentially what we're doing here is we're going to measure, I suppose, the efficiency of your pipeline. The 4 key features that you want to measure are deployment frequency, lead time to change, time to restore service, and change failure. And this is pretty much what all Scrum Masters, managers, whoever project managers want. They want quick deployments. They want to deliver value to the customer without, so you're increasing speed without causing more failure rate. And that's pretty much key. And you need to measure this so that you can improve your IaC service, self-service. Without measuring, you don't know if you're doing it well or not. And if you don't know, you'll never improve. So yeah, jump in and have a look at DORA and see if you can start measuring stuff. So some of the key takeaways here are, I would say that you need to really look at who the people in IaC are and how can you really listen to what they want, and how can you do that via automation, CI/CD, and make sure that everyone in that process is happy. And if you get everyone happy in that process, not only will you have an awesome IaC pipeline, but you'll be king of the world, I suppose, because everyone will love you. Yeah. So I hope what I've talked about it will be helpful and useful. Thank you, everyone, for listening.